Word problems. And this is actually going to be a slight change of direction on this because you're looking for a missing value. And to make that clear, over here to the side, I'm just going to set this up. Now we have the change, like the decrease quantity. I'm not going to say percent here. Like how much did it go down or up? And that was based on the original. I can't write new up top because it's like subtracting the new and the original. And then normally what we're used to seeing is, 100. And then here's where we had R, where we had the percent. So if we wanted to figure out anything, well, we'd compare it to 100%. That's kind of our base starting point. We don't necessarily know what the rate of change is. And then we could figure out, we could set anything up back and forth saying, well, here's the change, here's the original. And the reason I wanted to do that is because as we read through this problem, let's kind of use this as a reference for what's new and what's the same, or what's original. So the NFL fields are 120 yards long. So that's the NFL. That's with the end zone, so if you're like, well, 100 yards is a touchdown, that's the end zone, so keep in mind that that's added there. The CFL, Canadian football fields, are 25% longer. How long is a CFL field? Well, it's kind of like this would be the new, wouldn't it? So the CFL is the new one, and we don't really know how much to add on to the NFL, so that's going to be the mystery where I put that check at. So I'm going to put a value of x in the numerator because I don't know how much longer they are. Not as a percent, but as a value. But I do know that originally 120 yards is what we're dealing with. And since these are an increase of 25%, I'm going to set up 25, and here's 100. And if you wanted to, you could maybe just be like, well, I could just take a fourth of 120 and be like, that's 30. That's fine too, you could go about it that way. But we'll still cross multiply and divide. So I got 100x equals 25 times 120. And here's where I think we can definitely see that by avoiding multiplying that out first, crossing out these hundreds, crossing out the 25, because I know 100 is 4 times bigger, avoiding using the calculator makes doing 120 divided by 4 in my head a lot less work for me than going out and grabbing the calculator. Now what I'm not going to write is a percent here. And the reason I'm not going to write a percent is because it is really 30 yards. So the change was 30 yards. So that means that if these are 120, then I'm going to tack on an additional 30 to give me 150 yards. And that would be the CFL field. You can rewatch that if anything in there was kind of strange or confusing. It'd probably be helpful. So I've cleared everything out because I just maybe will look back to this to explain how we do the next problem. Tuition. A recent percent of increase in tuition at Northwestern University was 4.5%. So here's 4.5. I know it's an increase. And I know that that increase, I just realized I wrote 4.5. Make sure that you don't go quick like I did, and we put 5.4 instead. My mistake. So here's 5.4, and that's going to be out of 100. Now you'll notice that I didn't go through talking about all this, because maybe you're just picking up on the fact that, hey, there's the percent chunk. So if I want to target a 5.4 out of 100% increase, then I'm going to, compare it to something else. But here's the deal. If we got the new cost, it's $48,000 a year, we need to figure out what the original cost was. Now to make these numbers a little bit more easy to deal with, here's what I'm going to do. Instead of dealing with 48,000, I'm going to just turn that into 48. But I'm going to have to make sure I turn that into 48,000 back by the end of the problem. And the other thing you're going to want to make sure is, make sure you're aware that these percents, those don't have units attached to them, so it doesn't affect treating that as 48. But the problem is, I don't just have the new cost down here in the bottom. I got the original cost down here in the bottom. So that means that if I wanted to figure out what the original was, I would have to take that 48 and either subtract the original or take that x and do minus 48. Well, I'm going to go with this because I know that that would give me a positive number. So here's 48 minus x, where x represents the growth. Okay, now this gets a little bit uglier than things we've been used to doing, so I'm just going to cross multiply. So here's 100x equals 5.4 times 48 minus x. And let's say that you froze for a second. And here's what I mean by froze. You're looking at this and you're like, I don't know how to solve that. I've never done a problem like that before. Well, by freezing, you're kind of just throwing the towel in a little too quickly and not just figuring out what happens. So here I am writing it out. Now, in a previous problem, we would have divided by 100 right away, but instead let's clear out our parentheses. So I'll distribute. So here's 100x equals 5.4 times 48. Get the calculator out. We'll get 259.2. And then when I do 5.4 times x, I'm just going to do minus 5.4x. Now to fix this and solve it, I'm going to add 5.4x to both sides. Give myself a little bit more room to work with. And then I'll have 105.4x equals 259.2. You'll hear me dividing my calculator, 259.2 divided by 105.4. And I'll have to show that as a step too. Here's 105.4. Here's 105.4. And when I punch that in, I got x is approximately 2.459. And then it keeps on going to blah, blah, blah. But the reason I stopped there is because since this was a $1,000 problem or whatever, I'll jump back and I'll take that 48. And then I'm going to subtract 2.459 from 48. And I'm getting 45,541 dollars. So that's what I figured out the original tuition is. And let me go ahead and make another point here. Well, making the same point, really. This one's definitely going to feel more queasy. This is more challenging to set up, because figuring out this piece and that piece there is a little bit more work. But I do want you to really listen to what I said at this point after you have it set up. Even though you've maybe never solved something where there's the x in the denominator and an x here, by cross-multiplying, we were able to take it away and just work out the rest of the problem. So if you freeze there, it's going to be a mistake. And yeah, there's a lot going in this problem, so don't let it beat you up. It's important to be able to do a sales tax problem. So the concert ticket costs $45. That means that that is the original price. And we want to know that if we got 6 1/4 sales tax, well, what's that going to be doing to us? So here's 6.25 out of 100, and then I'll let you just yo this on your own. All right, so you should have work where I have the arrow, and then you get $2.82 on the sales tax, and then your final tab, once you add that together, is going to be right there. Pause it, check it if you need to, and then you can do this one on your own. You'll have no problem there. And there is another OYO. You got it. And you got a homework assignment that goes with this. Wonderful.